Picture this. You're walking into a massive building, maybe a bank or a library, and you go to push open one of those massive, heavy wooden doors. But instead of pushing near the handle, you accidentally push right next to the hinges. You push and you push, but it barely moves. It's literally like trying to push over a brick wall.
If you've ever done this, you know exactly how incredibly frustrating it is. Yet, if you just move your hand a couple of feet over and push near the handle, that exact same door, with the exact same mass, swings open with practically zero effort. So why does the exact same object resist your force so much more in one spot than another? Well, it all comes down to the physics of rotation.
By the end of this lecture, you'll completely understand the concept of rotational inertia, the master formula behind it, and exactly how to apply it in real-world examples. We're going to transform this frustrating everyday experience into perfectly predictable physics.
Section 1. Linear to rotational motion.
Okay, let's translate what you already know about linear motion, objects just moving in a straight line, straight into the rotational world. You definitely remember Newton's famous second law of motion, force equals mass times acceleration, or F equals ma. If you want to accelerate an object in a straight line, you apply a force, and the heavier the mass, the more force you need. Simple, right? Well, dynamics for rotational motion is a perfect mirror of this. Instead of a linear force, we use torque, represented by the Greek letter tau. Instead of standard mass, we use moment of inertia, represented by a capital I. And instead of linear acceleration, we have angular acceleration, represented by alpha. So F equals ma perfectly translates to torque equals inertia times angular acceleration.
Section 2. Understanding moment of inertia. To really grasp this new equation, we need to meet its main characters. First up is torque. Torque is basically just the turning effectiveness of a force. The formula is tau equals r times F. The F is the force you push with, and the r is the radius, or your distance from the pivot point. And this perfectly solves our door mystery. When you push near the hinge, that radius r is incredibly small. A tiny radius multiplied by your force means a tiny torque, so the door barely moves. But when you push near the handle, you maximize that radius. A huge radius multiplied by that exact same force gives you a massive torque, and boom, the door swings open effortlessly.
Second, we have the moment of inertia, the I in our equation. Think of this as the rotational equivalent of mass. It measures how stubbornly an object resists changes to its spinning motion. For a basic point mass, the formula is simply mass times radius squared. You literally just multiply the object's mass by the square of its distance from the pivot point. And if an object is made of a bunch of different pieces, you just add all those pieces together, which is what that summation symbol represents.
Now hold on a second. Does a 10-pound object always have the exact same rotational inertia? If mass is just mass, shouldn't it always be equally hard to spin? Think about that.
Section 3. The mass distribution twist.
The answer is a definite no. Rotational inertia has a fascinating twist, and it's all about how that mass is distributed. Because the radius is squared in our inertia formula, distance from the pivot actually matters way more than the raw mass itself. Think about an Olympic ice skater. When her arms are stretched out, her mass is far from her center axis. That makes her moment of inertia large, so she spins slowly. But the second she pulls those arms in tight against her chest, she drastically reduces that radius. Her inertia plummets, and she instantly spins incredibly fast without even pushing off the ice. This is also exactly why pro racing bikes focus on getting the lightest tires possible. Taking a pound off the spinning outer edge gives you a much bigger acceleration boost than taking a pound off the central frame.
Section 4. Solving the merry-go-round.
All right, let's make this totally concrete by applying our master formula to a classic real-world problem. Imagine a father at the park pushing a playground merry-go-round. Let's say the merry-go-round itself has a mass of 50 kilograms and a radius of 1.5 meters. The dad grabs the very outer edge and applies a steady force of 250 newtons. Whenever you tackle a rotational dynamics problem like this, whether on an exam or just analyzing the real world, always follow these 4 reliable steps. First, examine the situation and recognize that torque and mass are involved. Second, precisely determine your system of interest. Third, sketch a quick free body diagram. And fourth, apply our rotational analog of Newton's second law, torque equals inertia times angular acceleration. Let's jump straight into step 4 and calculate the dad's torque. Remember the formula? Torque equals radius times force. He's pushing at the very edge, so our radius is 1.5 meters. We multiply that by his pushing force of 250 newtons. That gives us exactly 375 newton meters of turning effectiveness. That is the constant torque driving our merry-go-round.
Now this right here is the absolute core of today's lecture. We're going to compare 2 different states,
pushing the empty merry-go-round versus pushing it when an 18-kilogram child is sitting on the edge. The dad's torque, his 375 Newton meters of push, is exactly the same in both scenarios. But as you'll see, the resulting angular acceleration is vastly different. Let's break down the math.
For the empty ride, we consider the merry-go-round to act like a uniform solid disk. In physics, the standard formula for a solid disk's moment of inertia is 1/2 times mass times radius squared. So plug in 1/2 times our 50-kilogram mass times our 1.5-meter radius squared. That gives us an inertia of 56.25. To find the acceleration, we just rearrange our master formula. Take the dad's 375 torque, divided by our 56.25 inertia, and we get an angular acceleration of 6.67 radians per second squared. That ride is spinning up fast.
But then, the kid hops on. Let's say this 18-kilogram child sits 1.25 meters from the center. We calculate the child's inertia as a simple point mass times radius squared. That's 18 times 1.25 squared, giving us 28.13. We add that to the empty disk's inertia, which gives us a much heavier total system inertia of 84.38. Now, when we divide the exact same 375 torque by this new, larger inertia, our angular acceleration drops all the way down to just 4.44. The exact same push produces way less acceleration because the system's overall resistance to rotation went up.
Wait, pay attention here because this is absolutely crucial. A really common mistake students make is calculating the child's inertia and just stopping there, or trying to average the two numbers. Don't do that. Inertia is cumulative. You must always add the child's moment of inertia to the merry-go-round's moment of inertia to get the total system resistance. The total I of your system is always the sum of all the parts.
Section 5. Summary and final thought.
Before we wrap up today, let's quickly lock in the key takeaways. First, rotational dynamics perfectly mirror linear dynamics. Second, torque is the ultimate cause of angular acceleration. Third, moment of inertia depends heavily on mass distribution. Pushing mass farther from the pivot drastically increases its resistance. And finally, our master formula rules it all. Net torque equals moment of inertia times angular acceleration. Now that you know exactly how to calculate how fast a system will spin, you have to ask yourself a bigger question. As that dad pushes the merry-go-round and it spins faster and faster, what exactly happens to all the energy he's putting into it? Where does it go? And how is it stored in that spinning metal disc? Think about that, and you'll be perfectly prepped for our next lecture on rotational kinetic